And welcome back to the Ghost and Friends YouTube channel. Joined again by Mr. John Tweet Sports, and welcome back to the channel, Mr. Drew. How we doing, gentlemen? Everybody good?
Fantastic. Could not be better.
Doing great, man. Thanks for having us.
Of course. I thought this would be a pretty fun crew to get together, do a little buy or sell. For you watching on YouTube, I asked a question on Twitter today. I said, give me 3 SEC football program stock that you would buy, 3 SEC football program stock that you would sell. And there's a lot of really good, fun answers. I'm not sure if a lot of the commenters crush it in the stock market, to be honest. But we'll talk about that, and I'll explain why. And I will tell you this. There are still Missouri and Texas fans and the Missouri and A&M fans in 2 separate conversations. They've been arguing for hours on that thread, hours. Still going on. The A&M and Missouri fan discussion is very civil, very cordial, polite, respectful. The Texas and the Missouri conversation is not the opposite of that. It's the bad parts of that app, and so it's been fun to watch it play out. And so, spur of the moment, asked you 2 gentlemen, which thank you for agreeing to wanting to do this, if they would come on and we do a little buy or sell and discuss a lot of the SEC programs. My man Rudy showing some love to Drew, Texas A&M University. Appreciate it, Rudy. It's fun to see you in here, man. I think Rudy, one of the OG followers. Both ways. I think when I first started my account, Mr. Rudy was around. So it's good. Always good to see those guys in here. But all right, without further ado, it's time to do some buy or sell. The way this is going to work, we told these 2 gentlemen here, we're going to kind of look at this as a 5-year stock option when discussing our buy or sell. It's not going to be just looking at next year and 2 years after that, just how these programs are built, how they've recruited, obviously what their coach is like. The NIL buy-in, the support from within the university and the administration, everything, we're taking it all into play. The first question I have is going to be for Drew. Okay, we're going to put you on the spot immediately right here. Okay, because it's going to get the elephant out of, or the elephant in the room out of the way early. Texas A&M, Drew.
Oof.
We buy Mike Elko, or are we selling? You're as real as it gets when it comes to Aggie media. So I'm very.
Dang, you're going to throw me right on the spot right away.
Right. Get it out of the way.
I was planning on building that one up, and I was wondering whether or not I was actually going to play this one. This might have just been a hold for me.
If you need to hold, or
no.
Okay.
I'm ready. I'm ready. We can go for it. And you know what? I came to a decision right before I came onto the show. And I was thinking about where I was going to go with these. On that post that you made, I think there's a lot of shiny object syndrome, maybe, like just straight up buying teams that are there now, or straight up selling teams that are already down. And that's not really how it really should work if you're trying to get the most value. But talking about A&M, especially right now with this whole basketball hire and the perception of the program as a whole, the way people have felt about this program for going on 20 years now, sleeping giant, whatever, it's just never happened. 8-4, 8-4, 5-7. Dude, I have to buy A&M. I know how it comes out. My Tamu's in my name, but I have to buy the program if I'm looking to make money here. I just don't see a world where A&M stays down. 5 years, maybe it's aggressive to do it now, but I'm going to buy A&M. I do believe in Mike Elko. I know the season ended rough. I know it was a losing streak to get out of the thing. I know you lost to your rival. I know you had 3 opportunities to make it to the SEC championship and get that rematch with Texas. Whatever would have happened there, we would have had a shot. But I believe in what he's selling. I think that culture piece, it's a buzzword, whatever. It was an important piece to get under your belt in the year 1, coming off the Jimbo stuff. We heard a lot of just, stuff coming out after the fact now, that a little bit of a lenient program, not the most disciplinary program, maybe some cliques forming, maybe just star chasing and not focusing on development. And I don't know if Elko's going to be able to get the talent that Jimbo did. I don't know if he's going to get to that 2022 level. I don't know if anyone will. That was crazy. And what did we get out of that? But I think there's some sustained success to whatever level coming in the pretty near future. And I'm not ready to make a pick for next year yet or anything like that. But man, if Texas A&M is not at least a 9-win program within the next 3 years, I'd be pretty surprised. And look at me, there's a freaking Texas A&M medal behind me. There's a Johnny Manziel football behind me signed. Of course I'm biased, but trying to remove myself from the situation, this does seem like a buy for me. The roster is good now. It's good enough to get to that 9-10 win marker. I don't know about contending, and I think it'll stay good because I think Elko's doing a great job in his evals, a great job in recruiting, has a great head start in 2026. I think it's 10 4-star commits already. It's just like solid recruiting. NIL is obviously there. Revenue sharing is probably coming up. I mean, portal's been there. It's just a matter of, can you turn talent into wins? And like I said, A&M's, kind of aura right now is bottomed out. We're still coming out of the tail end of that Jimbo thing. We're only 2 years removed from a 5-7 year. We have not fully come back from that yet. So I'm buying A&M, and I'd be curious to hear what you guys have to say.
I love all of that, brother. That's why you're here, because I know you would bring it. And I've said it for a long time. I like Mike Elko a lot. I agree a lot in the sentiment that I don't think he might, get the same type of talent that Jimbo Fisher brought in. I don't think Mike Elko cares because he wants his type of cat. And one thing I will say, and is I don't want to sound like a big Aggie hater, but I think Mike Elko brings a lot more substance to the program, a lot more grit than a Kevin Sumlin and a Jimbo Fisher did. I think they'll do things, all the small things, the little small dirty things that, that maybe help you just an extra ounce on the football field, or whether it be technique or teaching. I think he's better than, his predecessors in that regard. I think one of the big challenges that Mike Elko faces is, he does have a hot and buzzing Texas right down the road. And when it comes to recruiting in state, that coupled with all the normal out-of-state poachers, thanks a lot, John and Kirby Smart, all the other big schools that have been poaching our kids for the last 15 years. But that's where I do have pause, because I think there's a lot of buy-in with Mike Elko, and I think that they give him the proper time to get to that 9-win, maybe even higher type seasons. One question I will ask for you, Drew, do you think there's a ceiling on Mike Elko and as a head coach, or do you think it's way too early to kind of tell that? I think he's a hard-nosed coach that is going to, I agree with you. I think 9 wins, it's not like it'd be that much harder to get to 9 wins. You guys win 8 games all of the time. He can do that. He can get you there. You're going to play good defense eventually. You're going to have to get his type of guys in. It was just 1 year. Still weeding out the old Jimbo culture. But yeah, so long story short, do you think there is a ceiling on Elko as a head coach?
It's not a good answer, but I don't know yet. And whoever was in that position right now, what I want to see is how recruiting and talent acquisition changes once A&M gets that year under their belt. Once A&M gets that 10-win season done and that's out there and you can pitch, tangible success, I think that would bust open the ceiling for, any program, but especially a program with the backing and resources of A&M. And we saw just, one Orange Bowl victory and what 1 win versus Alabama did for Jimbo, who was an ace recruiter, but that resulted in the #1 recruiting class of all time. And I don't expect Elko or anybody, like I said, to maybe even get close to that. But if that kind of a season can happen, I think that would bust open the ceiling at A&M. That's what we need it to happen. We need success to breed success. We don't need to pit. I want to be done pitching. You can be the first one to do it here. You can be part of something new. I want to get to where we're pitching. This is what it's like. This is what it looks like. So I don't know if this is Elko exclusive, but I think the ceiling comes and we'll know what it is once we start hitting those markers. So to say that, I don't think it's capped. I really don't think so. I think A&M has everything they need going for it, but we're cursed. So who knows what happens.
It's just that was one of the only concerns I had as he came in. I don't know either, but I was wondering if he had that next level potential as a head coach. And I agree with you. I think it's a little bit too early. John, your turn, brother, man. I would love to hear your opinion on thinking buying, selling stock on the Texas A&M Aggies.
Yeah, I'll just get right to it. I'm buying stock in Texas A&M. Now, for me, it's the ceiling question is interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there's a number of factors on college football head coaches these days that some of them they control and some of them they don't. So when you talk about ceiling, it's not just the guy sitting in the seat, right? There's a lot of factors that go into that. But if you're asking me, will Mike Elko get Texas A&M to a little bit more of a national prominence, to get to a place where it is like, hey, they're in the conversation every year, whether they win a national championship or not. I mean, that's, again, a lot of things have to happen for that to happen, as Texas A&M fans know all too well. But Mike Elko, the thing about Mike Elko is this is a guy, I think it was such a good hire for Texas A&M because Kevin Sumlin and Jimbo Fisher were trying to be CEOs of the program, right? They were coming in and they were football coaches, but they were also trying to kind of elevate themselves above, kind of their position as a head coach. They were coming in and they were trying, with Jimbo, it was, navigate. He had to navigate NIL and all this other stuff, but it was a lot of it. So much of it is like fundraising and boosters and all these things, right? And that's where Kevin Sumlin and Jimbo Fisher, it just felt like they kind of lived there, Jimbo especially. Mike Elko doesn't. I mean, this is a guy that got it out of the mud. I mean, this dude was coaching, he's a defensive coordinator at the Merchant Marines Academy. I mean, it's like, this is not, I mean, you look in his resume is Richmond and Hofstra. And, I mean, this isn't a guy who, no disrespect. I think Jimbo and Kevin Sumlin also, I mean, everybody that gets these positions works hard for it. But Mike Elko is a guy who I believe, you mentioned substance. He's just a guy who, he's a football guy. He's a guy who, that's what he cares about. He cares about coaching football. He cares about putting together a competitive football team and using what he has and winning football games. And that's why I think, Texas A&M is going to be successful, because if you couple the resources of Texas A&M with a guy like Mike Elko, who resources are kind of secondary to him, to football, which is like the main thing, I think he'll be able to channel that, especially with, just his work ethic, his demeanor, the culture, that he's trying to build. I'm going to buy stock in Texas A&M, and I think Texas A&M is going to get a good return on Mike Elko. Now, is it national championship? I don't know. But I do think that if it's not a national championship, I think Mike Elko, whenever he leaves Texas A&M, the program is going to be in a much better place than when, like, Kevin Sumlin or Jimbo Fisher left it. I think he's going to put it in a place where, maybe he wins the national championship and he's there for a long time, or maybe he gets to a place where it is like, okay, I've elevated the program to a place and we need somebody that can actually get us over the hump. But either way, I think Texas A&M is going to go far in Elko.
Any thoughts, Brother Drew?
No, that sounds about right to me, man. I'd like to say it's a high floor situation right now, but that's what we thought before. So I'm in wait and see mode. I have strong belief in the guy. Everything that you just said, John, I totally agree with. So let's see what happens, man. Let's see what year 2 looks like.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about an 8-win team last year, but I mean, you were sitting at 7-1 at one point, right? I mean, you had a chance, like you said, and this was only year 1, and I don't think many people expected that with Mike Elko in year 1. They knew they would have a pretty dang good defense, especially in the front 7. But hey, I'll tell you the same thing that we've been saying. I mean, clean sweep. I'm in with you guys, buying the stock. He's going to lead the program in a better place, and I'm going to get flack for that. It sucks to say it. I would prefer y'all go 7-5, 8-4. I hope this is a good thing. I'm pretty pale right now, so trying to lean into the ghost role. Oh man. This is low key one of my favorite Georgia accounts. I don't tell him because I don't want his head to get any bigger than it is. But, he knows.
That's my guy right there, man. Shout out.
Yeah, I got a good crowd, man. I'm glad I ran into Georgia Twitter. I really will. But yeah, so clean sweep. I had a feeling it would go that way. Obviously, know what Drew would likely do. I would do, and then John knows football. And again, I think Elko brings a lot of substance to that program. Moving on. We got a lot of other teams to talk about. This one, I think, is going to be very interesting. I don't even know which way I'm going yet. John, we're starting with you. We're talking Coach Drinkowitz, the Missouri Tigers. Are you buying or selling stock for Missouri?
Man, you talked about Missouri. You talked about this, this conversation that are going on in your mentions between Missouri fan and Texas fan, Missouri fan, Texas A&M fan, and how they just continue going. Welcome to the Missouri fan experience. Like, Missouri fans, they're they are as passionate as they come for a team that literally just had back-to-back 10-win seasons for the second time in program history. The second time in program history. I am selling Eli Drinkwitz and the Missouri Tigers. I know back-to-back 10-win seasons. I know all this stuff. If you look at the schedule in 2024 that Missouri played, they might turn around and win 10 games again this year. But they played 3 teams that ended up well, I don't know. Did Texas A&M end up ranked at the end of the year?
No.
Okay, so they played 2 teams that ended up ranked at the end of the year: Alabama and South Carolina. They lost to both of them. They lost to Texas A&M. They beat Boston College 27-21. They went to double overtime with Vanderbilt, which Vanderbilt put a decent team on the field. They beat Arkansas by 7. They beat Iowa in a bowl game by 3, and I don't know if Iowa scored an offensive touchdown all year until they played Missouri. This is a team that is, if you have a lot of people who are what I refer to as box score watchers. They look at win-loss record. They look at, like, oh yeah, Boston College was number 24 when Missouri beat them. They look at these things, right? And they take these tidbits and they create these whole arguments as to why you should believe in this program. I'm telling you though, like, beat Oklahoma by 7. If you look at their wins, beat Auburn by 4. They eked out a 10-win season last year against a schedule that, for all intents and purposes, was a relatively easy schedule compared to other teams in the SEC, compared to Texas A&M, compared to Georgia, compared to Texas. I mean, this schedule was not a murderer's row of a schedule. And so Eli Drinkwitz, I think, Missouri is a team that, and a program, they have resources. They do a good job with NIL in Mizzou. Eli Drinkwitz, I think he's a good offensive mind. I think the guy can coach ball. He can coach up guys. But when I look at, he last year was supposed to be his like catapulting from the previous year that was a really good year. The previous year when, played Georgia really close. He won a New Year's Six bowl game against Ohio State. I mean, he only lost 2 games and they were to LSU and Georgia. That last year was supposed to be the year you catapult, it's like you finally got your program, you finally got your guys, like you're going to come in and like you're going to win some games that you shouldn't win. And he did not do that. He didn't win a single game that he should not have won last year. And he lost a couple that he should have won. And so for me, that's the Eli Drinkwitz experience. I think that Missouri is a good program under Eli Drinkwitz right now, much better than they were, 3-4 years ago. But I just don't think he's the guy to get over the hump. I don't think he has the chutzpah. I don't think he has what it takes. I mean, if you go back and look at Mizzou and you look at some of their previous coaches, I mean, you look at some of their guys that were previously on staff at Mizzou, Barry Odoms and some of those guys. I mean, they were real football guys. And I think Eli Drinkwitz, again, he's a good coach, but he doesn't have the demeanor of Barry Odom. He doesn't have the demeanor of guys who, Gary Pinkel, guys who like just get it. And I think that's what's going to take for Mizzou. So I'm selling.
Yeah, Gary Pinkel did not need any extracurricular things going on, with himself. He didn't need any faux hype or any of that nature, anything like that. There was no camo pants, overreactive celebrations to, O-lineman transfers or whatever the hell it was. He is a bit of a goofball, but I'm sure for Missouri fans, he's their goofball and they adopt it because he has won 10 games in back-to-back years, as you just mentioned. But again, their schedule last year, I mean, let's be real. It wasn't Georgia's schedule. No. It looked more like Drew and my teams, to be honest. But yeah,
but your teams had a more difficult schedule than Missouri.
We did. Period. Absolutely. For sure. We did. But it's hard for me, and now you're talking about a 5-year stretch. Yeah. But when they roll into Kyle Field in a not a must-win game, but a kind of a show your nuts game, show that you're really here and where that program is headed, and you get a mud hole stomped through your chest by A&M. I mean, absolutely abused in that game. I think it was 41-0 at some point. I don't know what the final was. I have no idea.
Yeah, 41-10. They were on an 8-game winning streak if you go back to the previous season, including wins over number 13 Tennessee at the time and number 7 Ohio State at the time. I mean, Yeah, you're saying it. That was the trajectory you're supposed to be on. That was the game
Yeah.
that you're supposed to win, and you lost by a 30 burger.
What's up, 2Pete? But yeah, it's a prove it game. Prove it game. Like, yeah, I know all about those dogs, unfortunately, but this weekend the tides start to turn. We're coming. I told John, get that voice ready. Josh, appreciate you being here as always, brother. Hey, you guys, like the video real quick. If you're on X, hop over to the YouTube channel. It's in the bio on my profile. Go like the video for John and Drew. They're always doing a great job when they're here. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that, please. But again, thank y'all for being here. That's most important. It's just really hard. I see that, and it's like, okay, are they a team that's going to play a lot of close games with the middle of the road SEC teams like you just mentioned? Oklahoma kind of had them. That was a crazy finish in that game. Absolutely wild. That's a game where you feel like Missouri should have, especially last year with Oklahoma, they should handle that Oklahoma team if that program is headed to where they want to be, and they are what they think they are. For me, it's a really easy call here now. Just listening to John talk, I'm selling. Drink's just weird enough to where I think that at some point that starts to get in the way. Maybe it costs them a couple of recruits. One thing that I think Missouri's saving grace could be is, you look at Arkansas, obviously they're really down. You look at Oklahoma, we'll see what they look like, but not on the positive trend line at the moment, and that's an area that puts out a lot of good players as well. And so Missouri is showing that they are committed to the NIL game. They just went pretty big in the transfer portal. We'll see how it all looks. I think, with the schedule, Missouri could easily win another 9 games. But as far as a 5-year span, I'm selling, John's selling. Brother Drew, you have the floor.
Yeah, I think y'all covered most of the tangible stuff, but I'll go ahead and defend Missouri a little bit. A couple of things I like about Missouri. My first time interacting with their fans, seeing Drink firsthand, that lead up to that game was crazy. I mean, I'm talking online and with Drink and the semantics. I don't even remember that quote that happened that week of where we were, playing with Marcel Reed before, kind of doing the bait and switch. Connor's maybe practicing, rumors that he's practicing. Oh, that's just semantics. That's a classic Drinkism right there. And I just tweeted that out last week because I was thinking about it and it was funny. But their fans, well, I always looked at Columbia as like this outpost, middle of nowhere. Why is this team in the SEC? Who is Missouri? They impressed me, man. They came out in droves that week. They were, trash talking with the best of them. They are a passionate, strong fan base that you would expect to see in the SEC. And for that, I have to give them the respect. Y'all talked about that game. It was an utter collapse. And you look at the sideline images in that game. You see Luther Burden with his head down, leader of the team, you would think. You see all this bad body language stuff. You see them lose by 30. A&M with Connor Wigman was not good that year when Connor was out there. Connor obviously had very much a surprisingly down year, and he threw all over them. And honestly, when I looked back at the end of the year and I kind of recapped what happened, and I know we're looking at the schedule, we're looking at eking out wins, but to see them overcome that game and to rebound and actually find a way to win those easy games, I know.
Valid point.
But the fact that they were able to scrape themselves up after that game and have a 10-win year, that was impressive to me. So if I had the option to, I think I might hold Missouri. I think I want to see it play out a little bit more. But if we're going, buy, sell, I'm going to have to fall in line and sell them because I feel more confident in the downside than the upside right now. But if I could, I would hold.
I like that a lot. That we should have had a hold option in there as well. And I will say this, one thing Drew said very early in the show, he was talking about shiny object syndrome or however you worded it in the comments on the post. There's a lot of people saying, I'll take Texas and I'll take Georgia and I don't want Mississippi State and I don't want Arkansas. Well, I mean, these stocks are all going to be priced very, very differently. Georgia and Texas stock are going to be up there, obviously, and Alabama. And then you go down to an Arkansas, Mississippi State, and Kentucky. We will get on Kentucky. I can tell you right now, we're going to sell the hell out of Kentucky, but we'll talk about that one later.
Damn.
It's about to get bad. But, that you got to take that into account. And so when we're talking about buying or holding, selling here with a Missouri, with an A&M, those are going to be, in my opinion, pretty appropriately priced stocks right here. You know what I mean? And it's not something that, if you're worried about, it's not like, no offense, but taking a Georgia or a Texas right now, and there is value there. If Missouri can continue to find a way to win these tight games and eventually learns how to take that next level and win a big road game at 11 a.m. at Kyle Field, or even maybe play within 2 touchdowns. maybe then they prove us wrong. But yeah, as of right now, it sounds like we've all been mostly in agreement so far. We'll give you credit for the hold there, Drew. I like that one a lot, to be honest, because there's still a lot to see with them.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, the schedule is pretty similar next year. It's going to be easy. There's a world where they could win 9-10 games again just based off of that. I mean, they get Bama and A&M. They're only, those are the ones that stand out. They're both at home. So who knows what happens, man. I think there's some time to wait and see there, but I totally hear you, and if I have to pick, I'm selling. But yeah, we'll go with the hold.
I like it. I like it a lot. So moving on from Missouri, we'll go over to the old school SEC East. One of John's favorite teams, the Florida Gators. Coach Billy Napier, who has been feels like he's been on the hot seat for a decade now. Hasn't been there for a decade, obviously. But yeah, this time last year, it felt like it was inevitable that Florida was probably going to have a new coach this year. You're talking about one of the craziest schedules in college football. They've somehow played better than I thought they would. Obviously, people got really excited about DJ Lagway. But for the next 5 years, Coach Napier and the Gators, what are you thinking, John?
Yeah, next 5 years, I think this one is it's tough for me, and it's tough because I think Florida is one of those schools again where historically, I mean, there's no reason why they shouldn't be good,
Right?
especially I mean, Florida wasn't. Let's just be honest. Florida wasn't good until Steve Spurrier got there. So they've only been good for about 35 years or whatever. But they historically have been good. This might be one that I would hold if hold were an option. But I'm gonna say that hold is not an option, and I'm gonna sell Florida over the next 5 years. And here's why. Florida, their main issue, if you look at, there's this lawsuit with Jaden Rashada, right? Who he transferred to Georgia. There's a lawsuit where he's like, Florida, they said they were going to give me this money. They were guaranteeing, this money, whatever. I got there was no money. Like, there was all these things that are coming out, or that came out at least in the initial filing of this lawsuit. And what it spoke to was just Florida, the administration at Florida and the football program are not aligned in how they actually are operating in this new world. And so what's happening is that you got boosters. They had the Gator, I think it was called the Gator Collective or the Gator Guard or something, but they had something that was like a NIL collective that was just shut down. Like, it just disappeared, and it was because the administration came in and was like, no, like, we can't operate this way. And so it's such a cluster. This is very maybe too in the weeds for this conversation, but this has nothing to do with football. Florida is a cluster in the administration of the athletic department when it comes to the football program. A lot of teams are, but Florida especially, and the administration, that's it. Joshy says it perfect. Florida's a top 10 job, and if the administration can figure it out, that's a dangerous setup. But the administration has shown nothing to be able to figure it out with their hiring of Dan Mullen and the way all that went down, when Dan Mullen literally didn't recruit. And then he was like, they asked him recruiting questions in the middle of the year, and he was like, well, we'll talk about recruiting when it's recruiting season. And people were like, what? Like, this is college football,
Right.
And Billy Napier came in, and it looked like for a long time, like Billy Napier, the first season and a half, it looked like Billy Napier was way in over his head. I mean, the dude, you would look at his press conferences, you could see the stress. He hired like 130 people to be on staff. It's like, you look at their staff, like, the administration and the football program are not in lockstep with what needs to happen. And you got to be that in order to be successful. You see it with Steve Sarkisian. Like, I think Texas is a good example of that. Georgia was absolutely a good example of that. Kirby Smart, he came in, sat down, and did the Nick Saban thing of like, this is what, if you want to be successful, this is what we're going to have. And the administration was like, yep, we got it. That's going to be Florida's issue. It's not to me, it's nothing to do with football. It's to do with how the actual program is run, what resources they have, and how the administration operates. So
That's very, very well said. And you're talking to somebody who watched his own school for a decade have very similar issues. Obviously, play on the football field was bad at times, really, really bad at times.
Yep.
But the deeper issue lied in administration, up to the school president. I mean, like, the alignment, there was no alignment, and that is something that, again, Sark obviously had a lot of time under Nick Saban, and
yeah.
Yeah, look at Texas now. So I agree
Anytime-
with you there.
And Billy Napier did a great job last year, but anytime you have an athletic director giving you a vote of confidence in a terrible season, like Florida, like 2 years ago, they came out at the end of the season was like, or close to the end of the season was like basically like giving a vote of confidence, basically saying like, we're not going to fire Billy Napier because the fan base was like, fire Billy Napier. Anytime you have that stuff going on, to me, I'm like, man, y'all are all over the place. And Billy Napier, to his credit, great job last year with DJ Lagway. Great job, with navigating what appeared to be at first a tough schedule, and then you had teams like Florida State that fell off the face of the earth. But man, that administration alignment is so important, and I don't think Florida's there yet.
And that obviously, I mean, you would agree that can play into what type of coach Billy Napier is for Florida. I mean, you look at buy-in and everything that Kirby Smart has and everything Steve Sarkisian has and Nick Saban had. And I mean, I'm not putting Sark on those two gentlemen's level, not yet. But it goes a long ways, man. And so I doubt that you feel bad for Billy Napier, but I think you would agree in saying that absolutely can have an effect on how he performs.
Yeah. And I think the big thing for Billy was he didn't know. I think, he was from the Saban tree, but he is not. He is the one that feels the furthest away from that Saban tree. Maybe Mike Locksley at Maryland might be a little bit further away, but like Billy Napier does not seem like a guy that's going to walk in the office like a Kirby Smart or Lane Kiffin or a Steve Sarkisian and sit down at the university president or the athletic director's desk and be like, this is what you have to have. If we're going to win, you got to have this and you got to give it to me. Or like, I'm going to, there's going to be hell to pay. Like, I feel like all those guys would like bully their way, just bow their chest and bully their way through that situation. And Billy Napier just doesn't seem to be that guy, but that's just my 2 cents.
It seems like he's just a football coach and he's not built, and maybe I'm wrong, but he's not built for all the politics and maybe going in and, being a bit of an asshole and saying, hey, this is what we got to have. And I'm going to pretty much do what I got to do until I get it, and that's what a lot of these coaches are doing. If you think that Kirby Smart hasn't done that or Nick Saban didn't do that, go watch their press conferences because they're talking out loud to boosters often. I'll keep mine really, really short and sweet. I actually like Billy Napier a little bit, but I think Florida is a bit of a house of cards for the reasons that John just mentioned. It feels like they're making a ton of promises, very big promises to recruits. They're getting a lot getting a lot of recruits in the boat early in cycles. Yep. And then they're losing some late losses on the field have to do with that. And I'm not going to say they're not coming through on these promises. But at some point, you got to win on the football field. That schedule is still really, really difficult here. And I can't guarantee that Billy Napier, who I do like, is their head coach any time after this coming season. And so because of that, I'm selling. What do you have for us, Drew?
Well, damn, I was actually considering buying here, but now I feel like I just got talked out of it. Y'all should be my advisors here. I'm glad I didn't pull the trigger, man. No, I think there's an argument all three ways here. This was one that I was going back and forth on. I think for me, I look at, I mean, y'all took us through the weeds there, which was great. I feel like I just got taken through the Florida program there. That was awesome. But I look at it, obviously, I'm looking at it through more of a simplistic view, and I just see kind of recent success, recent, hot seat storylines, all that stuff. And when I was, there's something going on. We're playing Florida every year right now. So I'm always talking Florida, but in kind of projecting them forward last year, I called the season of formality for Billy Napier. I thought it was like, let's get it done and he's out. I thought, there was no outcome that would save his job this year. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. And then all of a sudden, DJ Lagway figures things out. They go on that, 4-game winning streak, including the bowl game to end the year. And let's bring things back to like the value of like your stock here. I think there's a lot of hope just from people like me who look at things more simplistic for this program that just see, okay, DJ Lagway, big time quarterback, big name, media darling, kind of becoming that now, a hot pick to be like a breakout player next year. And as much as they could once again overachieve relative to the schedule next year, I see a big failure rate possibly there. I mean, I don't think that's set in stone at all, just going into next year. And with the recent, the status of the hot seat and all that stuff and Billy Napier out, I think this thing could turn the wrong way really quickly. You could be looking at a full reset. And I agree with Joshy there. This is absolutely a top 10 job. It's a matter of time with Florida. But in a 5-year window where we're looking kind of like at the tip of the needle right here, and it can go either way, I'm not risking it. I'm not buying. I'm not holding. I'm selling with you guys.
There we go. We got him. Peer pressure works occasionally on everyone. Yeah. And one thing I will say is I actually like Florida from a simplistic view, just staring at them on paper on the football
Sure.
field next year. I really think that they could be okay. But you're saying there is an avenue to disaster. There really is.
I think so.
Absolutely. I think there is a quicker avenue to a 5-win season than a 7-win season, and even like a 4-win season than maybe a 7-win. That's a tough schedule, man. It really, really is.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah,
And
and you shuffle things around a little bit too, right? So you got LSU and Texas like early in the year, Texas A&M in October. I mean, it's this past year, it's like they got Tennessee early. They had games. It didn't feel like they just got. It was a tough schedule, but it didn't feel like they got thrown into the teeth of the schedule this past year, like they're going to. So because they had Samford, they had Mississippi State, they had UCF, they had Tennessee, Kentucky, right? This year it's LSU, it's at Miami, it's at LSU, it's at Miami, it's Texas, at Texas A&M. Then you get Mississippi State, then you got Georgia, then it's like to start the game 3, at LSU and go from there. Like that's it's a different test,
right?
Yeah.
And a team that had injury issues in the past, and we're not really trying to speak any injuries into existence, but it is part of the game that we all love very much. It is inevitable. It happens to every single team. And they do not have a ton of depth. And so when you have that schedule, you got to stay healthy and you got to play damn good football. And so the one thing though, that every Gator fan is going to counter with is go DJ. We got our DJ. And so we'll see what happens here. DJ, I mean, it's fun to watch. I had a blast watching him to close the season last year. And I know that there's a lot of people that have very, very high expectations, and I wouldn't be terribly surprised to see him get there. But we're talking about. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. The only question I have about DJ Lagway is can he hit the ceiling of an indoor facility when he's throwing a 70-yard pass like Anthony Richardson? Because that Florida, I saw that at Florida's pro day, Anthony Richardson, he threw a bomb. It went up, like it went so high that it hit the ceiling in the indoor facility, and Florida fans were acting like that was like the best football throw that anyone's ever seen. I'm like, he hit the ceiling. And so Florida fans, they want somebody, if you can throw it 80 yards and you can hit the ceiling of the indoor, then you are the greatest quarterback to ever walk the planet. So.
I already know that you were watching Anthony throw that ball into the ceiling, watching like the guys in the outfield on Major League. The first guy for the Yankees hits the home run, and they're talking about like the trajectory in the apex. He was like, well, it was too high. I didn't think. He was like, well, no, it was too far. They're arguing for a second. He was like, who gives a shit? It's gone. Like, what are we talking about? You throw a ball into the ceiling, and like, I mean, that right there, I feel like redo it.
Yeah, Drew, we've just recently met, but I hate Florida with everything inside of me, and I try to be objective in these conversations, but I grew up a Georgia fan. I grew up hating Florida and Steve Spurrier. And man, let me tell you, my response to Anthony Richardson in that ceiling was like, I think the objective is to complete the pass. I don't know like if that was good or bad, if that showed off arm strength or not, but like he literally like did not.
You found the way to nitpick it. You found your angle there. Yeah, man. I still can't believe they won 8 games last year, though. That still baffles me. I was thinking like lucky to get 6. Yeah. Lucky to get 6. And if they can overachieve again and buy him another year, who knows?
Yeah, they had a Lane Kiffin special thrown in there, though.
That's true.
He'll give you some of those every now and then where it's like, yeah, anyway.
He's good at that. This one is the one that Joy might be ready to hear. Drew, I need you buying, selling, holding on the LSU Tigers. Brian Kelly feels like it's got to be a big year for him. Should have a very powerful offense there, but defensively, a lot of question marks about the Tigers over the last couple of years. What you think?
Yeah, just like you hate Florida, John, I am growing to hate LSU more and more every year, man. And it was like, I've been on Twitter a long time, not always as Drew Tamu, but I had a burner before. Yeah, I was in the burner verse. But I didn't have a single positive interaction with an LSU fan until maybe this year. And I found a few since then. It's been pretty good, but I base my hatred on the interactions with the fans. So LSU, you have a special place in my heart. And as much as I hate to say it, I look at LSU as almost fail-proof, just as a program. As long as I've been around, it seems like whatever happens there, that it never really bottoms out. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but it just seems like anyone can win there. And there's a lot of question around Brian Kelly and what's going on there. I know this is a weird time. Can he win at the highest level? Can he get LSU back there? I don't know. I don't know if I care. Even in a 5-year window, let's say it bottoms out this year and they hit the bottom end of it, the next guy can win at LSU. I mean, they obviously recruit and defend the state like nobody else. It's a program that, as long as I've been around, has been successful. So I'm actually going to pump the most money I have into a stock into LSU. This is the one I'm the most confident in. I'm not trying to make friends here. I'm trying to make money. So I think I'm going to buy in on this kind of negative, questionable era right now. You know, they lose that whole O-line. They're in year 2 of that restructured defensive staff. It has to be better. It should be better, I would think. But, you know, there's still question marks. They rebuilt the receiver room. Let's see what happens. I'm not necessarily too concerned with 1 year for LSU. And if I'm looking at any 5-year chunk with the LSU Tigers, and I'm getting this low point right now, talking about value on a stock, I'm going to make that purchase right now and run away with it.
Hey, man, you may have won me over, okay? Because I was definitely on the fence. I'm going to answer this question really quick. Mr. Martinez, Saturday night, I will be at the Dish, not tomorrow night. If we don't get the link up, I apologize, but I definitely hope you enjoy what should be an incredible atmosphere. That's tomorrow with John's Georgia Bulldogs coming to town. There will not be any home runs hit by
84 home runs on the
I can't find Nash's comment, but he said no home runs, please. So you got to respect Nash. No homers for Georgia allowed.
Yeah, I told Wes Johnson. I told Wes. I said, hey, my buddy Nash says no home runs, and Wes was like, all right, Georgia's baseball coach. He's like, yeah, that's fine. We won't hit any.
See, I'll tell you, you're a great guy, John, and I appreciate all the interaction with Georgia fans. So we're gonna treat it like adult softball. You can hit 2 homers, 3 homers, but then anything after that for the rest of the series is an automatic out. Okay. And if you want to go ahead and have one guy just cranking over and just losing baseballs, we'll just go ahead and we'll boot him from the game and get him an early flight back to Athens, Georgia. But no, it'll be a great game. Appreciate you being here in the comments, Miracle.
I might watch y'all's game because I think I need a palate cleanser from all the Aggie baseball I've been watching. Brutal. It's been pretty bad. And just for the sake of the sport, I might end up watching y'all's series. So I'm hoping for fireworks. I hope there's a million homers both sides and I'm watching some great action.
There will be action. If you've watched Georgia baseball whatsoever this year, action is inevitable. I just hope that we're also providing some action that the Burn Orange side can get behind. But Drew, I thought you know a lot of that regarding LSU. I'm not going to say very, but I am not in love with Brian Kelly as a head football coach. I just, especially his tenure in LSU and a way that defense has operated the last couple of seasons underneath him, particularly against the run game. They look horrible in their run fits. Yeah. Obviously, you saw that firsthand, John, or Drew, as Marcel Reed and an Aggie offense.
They had no idea what was happening. He
scored on 6 straight possessions, if I'm not wrong.
Something like that, yes.
And one half, yeah.
I give us credit. I give us credit, but I always throw out the caveat. They were absolutely lost. There was no contingency. There was no discipline. There were guys in the same gap consistently. It was a mess.
Right. Marcel was pulling some of these option looks, rather there was no one within a zip code. And again, credit Marcel. Maybe he's just that good at ball fix that night. Yeah, sneaky rascal. Again, that's he's coming in for Connor after at halftime there, and but still, you have the caliber of athlete that LSU puts out on defense year in and year out. That to me is where I was kind of torn on. Drew feels like, hey, this is not who they are. These are outliers. They have good defenses. LSU always has good defenses. We talked about that almost every show that we talked about LSU last year. This is just, it's odd to watch LSU struggle this badly on defense. They're gonna have a good quarterback. Then they've got a slew of wide receivers next year. They always have wide receivers. But offensive line, what does that O line look like in the future? They've been pretty good at tackle the last couple of years, but kind of soft in the middle. So I don't. I think I'm just talking to myself, trying to make myself pick an option here. But I just LSU has been as good as anybody outside of Alabama in the last 25 years of this sport. So I probably roll with LSU and go ahead and buy some stock. Thanks, Brother Drew, for the swaying right there. I did need a little bit.
And I love hearing you question yourself there because that makes me feel better about the buy. I want there to be questions. I want there to be uncertainty. I want them to doubt Brian Kelly because that's just going to give me that better value. So, yeah.
There you
I
go.
think
Appreciate
you could
you.
get a much better price than normal on LSU.
I
You know,
think
right
so.
now. You know, I mean, I know there's a lot of hype about this offense, but all right, brother John, talk some Tigers.
I'm gonna go real quick and just be succinct as I possibly can. I'm with Drew. I'm buying LSU. Have you guys heard any interview conversation at any point in your life with Les Miles and Ed Orgeron? Like individual. Like if you lit those two guys,
It's so true.
I'm like the Les Miles and Ed Orgeron won a national championship at LSU. Yeah, bye. I mean,
good point.
it's like, dude, like it's and again, I think it's a lot deeper than that as well. But like LSU, they're in a situation where they do have a lot of dysfunction at times with the administration, a lot of dysfunction at times in the football program. But what LSU has shown, which is I can't think of many programs that have shown this, is just the resiliency, the ability to bounce back, the ability, like you have a bad season, you have something go wrong, you have whatever, whether you make a coaching change or not, change staff or not, whatever, you turn around and it's not a 3 to 5 year rebuild ever at LSU. And a lot of these teams that I'm sure we'll talk about tonight, and speed things up a little bit more succinctly, but a lot of these teams, they have to operate on a 3 to 5 year rebuild, and LSU does not. Period. So if Brian Kelly doesn't work out, if next year is in the tank and they fire Brian Kelly or whatever, like I have full confidence that this isn't going to be a 5 year rebuild at LSU. So I'm buying stock.
Yeah, it's pretty easy call. Y'all, I can't even believe I was on the fence. You just look back at the last 2.5 decades and how, again, the 3 to 5 year rebuild for most. Yeah, LSU was not. They're recruiting from the boot. 95% of kids that are, your blue chip recruits, they grow up wanting to go to LSU, and LSU does about anything that they can to keep them from leaving the state. So
the guy who was the interim head coach at Ole Miss, who was on staff, and they made him the interim head coach when they fired their coach, became the head coach at LSU, and Ed Orgeron, and they asked him in a press conference, what memories did he have of coaching at Ole Miss? And he said, I used to stop at the Exxon gas station and get chicken on a stick. And I hope the lady that was working there is still working there, because that stuff was good. I love chicken on a stick. That guy won a national championship at LSU. Buy stock.
Look, I have a little story about Edo too. Look, I mean, so my fiance, she doesn't know a lick about sports. She knows she supports who I support, and that's great. She knows a couple coaches. She knows Nick Saban. She knows the A&M coach. She knows Sark. She knows all the great coaches. But she also knows Ed O because he's such a goofball. It's the one outlier that she knows, and it has nothing to do with football. So I'm totally with you there, man. If Ed O can do it, if Les can do it, man, whoever it is next after Brian Kelly, if it's not Kelly, they're going to get it done.
And Orgeron did it in Nick Saban's.
Oh yeah,
like when Nick in his prime, like he
in
did
the heyday,
like. Yeah, he did it with it was when Tua and those guys were there. Like, I mean, yeah.
Yep, that receiver tandem, they kept going for like 8 years. That was
come on.
It
wasn't, yeah. Anyway,
I mean, you're talking about potentially one of the greatest teams of college football history was head coached by Ed O. Yeah, it's pretty
That's crazy.
Yeah. All right. Just an update for you guys. We are kind of doing it a little more extensively than I think any of the three of us thought. So we're going to do half of the time here. We'll go half of the conference tonight, and we'll come back in a week or two and run back the other half of the conference. And so, with that being said, Mr. Drew, you pick our next school that we're going to buy, sell, or hold on.
Oh, let me see here. I have a couple I want to go with. Who are we going to go with next? How about Alabama? Let's stick to the top of the conference for now. This is one that I also went back and forth on. I think there's arguments both ways. And again, I'm going to keep things as simplistic as I can, and then we'll let John take us into the weeds here. I think it's a good tandem we have going on right now.
Yeah.
But I'm still banking on that mystique around Alabama that I think might still be lingering a little bit. And yeah, they're still recruiting really well. What is it? 2 top 3 recruiting classes under DeBoer's belt now, I think. Yep. And that all looks really good, and that will yield results. But I still think there's an expectation for Nick Saban results. I think that's still maybe kind of maybe subconsciously built in there. And I think there's a world where people are still expecting Alabama to be that SEC championship every year, in that conversation every year. And they'll be close. They'll be a solid team for years to come. DeBoer has won everywhere he goes. It's not, the bottom is not going to fall out. But I think there's some value in there in selling when we're still only 1 year out from Nick Saban. They're still recruiting really well. And I just think they're going to come a little bit shorter than they want to, because that fan base obviously expects nothing but the best. And I think that goes for the entire country. And as much, I wish I would have done this a year ago, obviously, or maybe even before we saw the 9-win season, but I'm still banking on that Bama mystique a little bit to carry me and get me a little bit of value. So, John, I'll let you take us into the weeds now. How do you feel? I think this might be a controversial one. I don't know.
You better buy stock in Alabama. And
okay.
And listen, I'm not gonna. I can totally see your point. I would probably say like Alabama might be a hold, like a leaning as a hold for me.
Sure. Yeah.
I was, as Kirby Smart said, I was born and raised in the SEC. I was baptized in this. And Alabama, they do have, the fan base has Nick Saban results. Like that's their expectation. And because the fan base has that expectation, Greg Byrne, the athletic director, has that expectation. And everybody in that building has that expectation. Do I think Kalen DeBoer is the guy that can get it done? I'm not sure. But what I do know is that Alabama, at the end of the day, where the mystique around Alabama, if you go down there, if you go on a recruiting visit, if you go like on campus and you see statues of Bear Bryant, and you go in the, in the football buildings and you see those 18 national championships, even though, probably 8 of them are, fraudulent, but you see it. And I think the challenge with Alabama is going to be, Alabama is not, Alabama is not as wealthy as Texas A&M or Texas or even Georgia, or like some of these alumni bases, Florida, like some of them have deep pockets, and Alabama is not that. And so I think when you get into a situation with NIL and all that stuff, that could potentially shake it. But there's no way I'm going to sit here and say sell Alabama. And the reason over the next 5 years, and the reason being is I sat up in that stadium, in the top of that stadium, with my good buddy at NCAA transfer portal. Shout out Matt. I sat up in the top of that stadium and watched Alabama take a 28-0 lead on Georgia and Kirby Smart last year with Kalen DeBoer. And I was like, and I sat in that stadium and I looked around and I was like, dude, this is Alabama. Like, this is college football. And again, things happened last year. I think Jalen Milroe was like not, Jalen Milroe, he turns every time he played Georgia, it felt like he turned into, Tom Brady, or, that's not a good comp, but he turned into like, the elite of the elitist quarterbacks, and everybody else he, kind of played down to. But I do think Alabama, they have the resources, they have the facilities, they have the tradition, and they have a lot of guys that they can pull from if Kalen DeBoer doesn't work out. So I'm going to buy Alabama.
Yeah, I totally hear everything you're saying, and I can see it too. I've been in the stadium. It was years ago, but I've been in that stadium, and very prestigious, proud, historic fan base and program and all of that. But I guess I'm just banking on that perception that you just showed us right there, and I'm just hoping for a little bit of value there, hitting just under that, just kind of coming off the greatest stretch of all time in the sport. Maybe that's what I'm banking on. But we'll have to come back. We'll have to come back in 5 years.
Yeah, and there were. And I will say this, like Alabama, so they vacated the year 2 years before Nick Saban got there, 2005. Alabama won 11 games. Yeah, they won 11-2. They had to vacate a bunch of wins for recruiting violations under Mike Shula. But like again, people look at the Nick Saban results and the national championships is what it is, right? But like, if you look at the 10-win seasons, the 11-win seasons, Mike Shula was doing that in 2005, with no, like, very little talent. Dennis Franchione won 10 games at Alabama. I mean, it's just a program that, like, I think.
Yeah.
Coach.
Oh, Coach, checking in. Coach Hayes, hope everything is well.
Yeah, I hope the grandbaby's doing well, Coach. He visited the grandbaby today.
Oh, good stuff, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get you on here very soon, man. Would love to get your perspective on some buy or sell as well. I'll say this. I feel like I'd be a fool to not buy on Alabama, given the recent history in the sport. And I'm assuming it still has to be a ton of buy-in and a desire for that program to remain at the very top of the relevancy poll. I think that Jalen Milroe is just not a fit for Kalen DeBoer. And so when they're struggling badly at times on offense, I just it's a really bad fit. He is a all-read.
He was a fit versus Kirby Smart's defense. Good Lord.
Yeah, but y'all let him get those legs going, brother, man. Kalen DeBoer wins. Winners win. And if you go back, and now this is obviously the pinnacle of college football. This is the best conference. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be a war Saturday after Saturday. If he finds a quarterback, then I think, he can take Alabama back to not obviously dynasty level, but he's capable of winning a title. I think DeBoer is that good. But if you go look at his teams, just look a little soft against the run. Teams of Washington last year against Alabama. He can grow as a head coach, Michael Penix, I have PTSD. I have DeBoer PTSD. He lit us up. I've seen what he can do with a real passer. It's all reads, all right, timing routes, things that did not fit Jalen Milroe's game. And so I'm giving kind of Alabama and DeBoer a pass on last year, to be honest with you. It did make me a little sad that, they got in there and handled Georgia and made me maybe have a little false hope on that, they did it. We can do it. We just beat them last year. It's Jalen Milroe. But yeah, thanks. And so I think you'd be a fool. Bye-bye on Alabama all day long.
Yeah.
I'll be the fool.
I was about to say, I don't disagree with like the fundamental points that Drew laid out. I just
not at all. No,
I just think, and what I say, maybe I know, maybe when we do the second half, maybe we do the second round, maybe we'll lay a little bit different ground rules around, like where is the stock price, right? Like I think there is, right. Like, if you're trying to make money on buying a stock over the next 5 years, like this, the stock may have dipped last year, but it's still Alabama. It's still a pretty high price that you're paying for that stock and hoping to get a return on it. And that return, to get that return, you would have to get back to that Nick Saban result. So that's a fair point.
I think honestly, with all, us three and as much ball knowledge as we have, we probably would have all had a lot of Alabama stock already, and we would all probably be holding. So yeah, that's definitely one thing. Again, this is all spur of the moment. I even thought about pricing each program as a stock, but then I was like, I'm going to get accused of being biased here because I'm going to put Texas as one of the higher price stocks. So
I wouldn't have held. I would have sold Alabama stock after Nick Saban beat Georgia in the 2023 SEC championship. That Alabama team was not. They were not good enough to win that game, and they
weren't.
Yeah.
All right, John. Your turn, brother. Pick a school for us. I think was that 5 or 6 that we've done.
That's 6.
6. Okay.
Right. Was it?
Yeah. Alabama, LSU, Missouri, Texas A&M, and Florida. Anyone else in there?
Nope.
Dang. We did take our time on those. We could do another 1 or 2, or if y'all want to do all 3, we can get to half, and let's speed it up just a little.
Let's just do a couple more. So I'm going to start. I'm going to start with one that's near and dear to my heart because it is my wife's family are all Auburn Tigers. They are all the War Eagle, Tiger, Plainsman, whatever. How many mascots they have down there on the plains at Auburn. But I'm going to go with Auburn. I think Auburn is such an interesting case because if you talk about stock price and if you talk about expectations, Auburn is not like, you guys tell me, what should the expectations be for Auburn football? Like, people, you talk to Auburn fans, you talk to a lot of Auburn fans, and they'll talk about SEC titles or national championships or whatever. But Auburn, they've claimed 2 national titles. They won the one with Cam Newton, but the other one was 1957. Like, so they're not like they don't have this history of a lot of national championships. They've only I I say only, but they only have 16 conference titles. Only 8 of those are SEC titles. 7 was from the SIAA, whatever that was, in the Southern Conference. I mean, so this is a team that I think when you think about stock price and you think about expectations, sometimes there is misalignment because they play in the state with Alabama, and because they, the Iron Bowl and all these things, and you think of Auburn, and I don't view Auburn as one of those, kind of elite teams like in the conversation. And so for me, when I look at the stock price and I look at like, where is Auburn? Auburn's been, they've only won more than 8 games twice in the last, 12 years. And so I'm going to buy Auburn stock, but I'm buying Auburn stock in their ability to get back to a 10-win season, to get back to feeling like, when feeling like some of those Gus Malzahn teams, even though they were only, even though some of them went 8-5, but they were like, it's like, dude, yeah, Gus Malzahn might beat Kirby Smart and Nick Saban in the same season. Like he might do it. So I think Auburn, for me, maybe Tommy Tuberville is maybe the better correlation, but like just the teams that you're like, okay, these guys are going to be in the conversation. I'm going to buy Auburn being in the conversation. And I will say that with the caveat that I don't know if it's going to be under Hugh Freeze or not, because I think Hugh Freeze, when we talked earlier about the rebuilds, Hugh Freeze is on a 5-year plan at Auburn. And there's no reason why you should be on a 5-year plan at Auburn. Like there's no reason why you have to act like it's 2016 in college football. And Hugh Freeze has been out there. The thing that's been puzzling to me is Hugh Freeze, this offensive guru, this, Malik Willis guy at Liberty guy, and like all this stuff has not been able to produce a quarterback, worth its salt. And so maybe Jackson Arnold's that guy. But I am going to buy stock in Auburn in terms of them being able to move from this 6-7, 5-7, where they've been living. If I buy it at that price right now, I think Auburn's going to win 10 games in the next 2 to 3 years, and they'll win 10 games. They'll have more 10-win seasons over the next 5 years than they'll have less than 10-win seasons.
Yeah, I'll be short with it because you hit it on the head. I think the first thing you asked was what are expectations at Auburn, and we can confidently say they're better than 5-7, and that's where we are right now.
Yep.
And exactly like you said, why hasn't Hugh Freeze gone out and gotten that quarterback? Is Jackson Arnold the guy right now? I don't know, but I feel like there's a season better than 5-7 coming up, and like I do expect Hugh Freeze to do well there, even though there's question right now. He's on somewhat of a hot seat right now. Things are weird right now. It's a major wild card in the sport this year, but there has to be improvement on the horizon from where they are right now. And talking about valuations, whatever the market price is, I think it's low right now for Auburn, whatever that ceiling is, whatever it is, 10 wins, playoff, whatever, there's some value to be gained in Auburn right now. And look, what do y'all think about Jackson Arnold next year? It's a really tough question. I think he might have gotten benched a little early, didn't get his fair shake at OU. I mean, we have the 5-star tape. I just don't know if he got the fair shake next year. And, with Hugh Freeze, who knows what that thing can be, because it's just really been the quarterback. And they were in so many close games last year where they had like freaking 4 interception games with Peyton Thorne. And that's a game right there. That's it. So, I mean, I think there's improvement like right away right now. And I think I get early value right away, but more so than that, I think there is some, fail resistance with the program, like you were saying.
Yeah. I like that. I mean, Hugh Freeze, obviously you talk about big time recruiting that's the first thing that I think of when it comes to Hugh Freeze, for other reasons, well, going back into his past. But I mean, I always liked Hugh Freeze as a schemer, and until he gets an offensive line at Auburn, you're not going to see the type of quarterback play that he's capable of, developing. That's their main issue at the moment. They are a turnstile on the offensive line. And so that is something, you're not going to just have an immediate fix overnight. You can get better. Absolutely. That is more a multi-year fix unless you just somehow strike gold, but Auburn's not really built like that to strike gold. And they didn't do it via recruiting or the portal. So they'll be better on the offensive line. Jackson Arnold, great question there, Drew. What does he look like? I don't think anybody can really tell, because Oklahoma had so many issues with that offense last year, from offensive line to wide receiver to play caller. He was fired in the middle of the season.
Right.
The scheme was terrible. Now he's a big zone read RPO guy, and that's what it is kind of in the modern era. A lot of the new schemes are all centered around RPOs, and so that's not what Hugh Freeze did in his heyday when he was at his prime as a schemer and a play caller. And so curious to see how it all meshes. I definitely think it's an interesting fit, and I'll say all that to sell on Hugh Freeze, sell on Auburn. Just because I think he's there for one reason, that is to fix recruiting, to get some bodies in for what will eventually be his successor. Yep. So,
damn.
Can we get a quick one in?
Of course.
This week, Mississippi State. Are we
sell?
Yes, sell.
I'm buying.
You're buying Mississippi State. Oh yes. Okay.
Okay. Hold on.
We can save the conversation.
Okay. How much worse can it get? Right? Like, we're talking valuations here, right? This is the bottom. This is the bottom for any SEC program, is it not? I mean,
Vanderbilt does say hello,
but Vanderbilt's special. They're a special case, man.
They are.
Mississippi State.
I love those guys.
Jackie Sherrill and Sylvester Croom. 2001 to 2006, Mississippi State went 3-8, 3-9, 2-10, 3-8, 3-8, 3-9. So 2-10 is probably the bottom, but they have had stretches in their program history where they have gone long periods of time where they have failed to win more than 2 or 3 games. So
I'd like to think that era of just sustained failure is over with NIL and revenue sharing. I would like to think it's different, but you could be right. I'm buying, man. I don't think I'll get a better price than right now in the modern age.
No, that's true. That's true. Lounge. There's my boy Lounge. Oh, it could get much worse.
Oh, there he is. There he is. No, don't say it. Don't say it, man.
The 80s, the entire 80s, Mississippi State, 3-8, 4-7, 4-7, 1-10.
I'm sorry.
Sylvester.
You're right. If you're looking for value, I mean, you can't get worse than Mississippi. You can't get a lower price. This is like
I know, that's what I'm saying.
This is like it's GameStop, right? When it hit the bottom.
Dude, I know. This is 2020. I'm buying everything, man.
It's just hard for me to get behind a Jeff Levy-led team. It feels like I'm going to get targeted for some illegal pump and dump or something in the market, just even thinking about backing Jeff Levy. And with all due respect, Lounge, I just don't like your head coach very much. You can look further back into his past and maybe into his family tree, and then you'll have an understanding as to why. And so I can't root for the guy. Can't do it. I get, though, Drew. It's value town. Absolutely. Like,
I came into this thing trying to make money, man. That's what I'm trying to do. Maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe I'm a dummy. But
you're good. No, you're good. That's
I like it.
That's perfect reasoning.
Yeah.
We'll have to do one of these at some point on other sports. Because the interesting one is, are you buying or selling Mississippi State baseball? Like, that's really the interesting one. Because Mississippi State, they're a baseball school that's struggling in baseball. But boy, football.
They are.
Football
fan base that's a little bit torn apart at the moment as far as what they want moving down the line.
I'll tell you what I want as a visiting fan is I want to get fed in the left field lounge at a baseball game because it's the best. So
some say the second best. I won't do that to you, Lounge. I can't. I won't do it to you.
Drew,
can't do it.
Drew, we're friends with Lounge Dog, who is tuning in, so that's a lot of our banter related.
Yeah, I recently discovered him. This is he's providing me some good Mississippi State content, so I'm gonna jump on board this thing here.
Best.
He's as good as it gets on Twitter, and he's got a great circle of friends on there as well.
Nice.
All right, let's do one more quick one. One of you gentlemen, first one that comes to mind.
Do Arkansas if you want to go quick.
Yeah, I was about to say one that would have a little less of a debate. Arkansas. You can go for it, Drew. You go first.
Yeah, and I've been trying to make money this whole time. I think there's some rough years ahead for Arkansas. I think they have to go through one more year with Sam Pittman. They obviously are. I was talking to an Arkansas guy today, and the word I used, formality, about Billy Napier last year. It's essentially what he was talking about his team this year. He's like, win or lose, if we get a couple games, it doesn't matter. We got to get off of this guy. And they're already down. Maybe there's a rebound. You can rebuild quickly, but unfortunately, it's still Arkansas. And I know I was just making this case for Mississippi State. I think Mississippi State's in a better place than Arkansas, in my opinion. I just don't think it gets better quickly for Arkansas. So I'm getting it out of my portfolio right now. I'm not going to try to wait. I think I might be waiting more than 5 here. So I'm going to sell Arkansas.
Yeah, I'm going to sell Arkansas too. Arkansas is one of those programs that, again, like college football has changed, so historical references, aren't always applicable. Even though I tried to use them with Mississippi State, but Arkansas, when they hired Chad Morris right after Brett Bielema went 4-8, and they hired Chad Morris, and Chad Morris, like at the time, Chad Morris was one of the brightest minds in college football. He was one of the guys that that was out there that, he was Clemson's offensive coordinator that had Clemson's offense, national championship contention. He went to SMU and had couple of really good years at SMU in terms of like taking that team from 2-10 his first year to 7-5 and winning the bowl game, and all that stuff. And boy, he went 0-16 in the SEC. Yeah, Maggie. Shout out Mizzou and Arkansas rivalry. You want to talk about some fun times on Twitter. 0-18, 0-16. I'm sorry. Chad Morris went in the SEC in 2 years. And I do think that those years could absolutely be back. I think the one saving grace for Arkansas right now is separate from his separate from who he is as a person in general, because I'm also a Falcons fan, and what Bobby Petrino did to the Falcons, leaving in the middle of the night, leaving a note in the locker room, was absolutely insane. But separate from who he is as a person, I do think Bobby Petrino is a really, really good football coach. I think that guy can absolutely get he can get juice from a turnip, and so I do think that Arkansas has a chance to. I don't think they're going to fall off a cliff. I don't think they're going back to 0-8 in the SEC. I don't think they're going back to 2-10 years. But I do think 4-8. I do think there might be some 3-9s in there or some 5s and 7s. There's not going to be enough value to buy Arkansas stock at all.
Yeah, and I'm nervous about traveling there this year. It's the first time A&M goes to Fayetteville since, I don't know, the first year in the SEC. Maybe it's been a long time, and yeah, I mean, Petrino has reason to beat us. He's a weird guy. Maybe he has a little extra juice for that game at home. So I'm scared of that game as much as I'm selling Arkansas. I mean, I respect the venue. I respect their hatred for Texas-based schools. It's going to be an interesting game.
Well, you get to play them in Fayetteville and not in Little Rock. So that's
true.
That War Memorial Stadium. If you ever hear Mike Leach talk about that place, R.I.P. Mike Leach, I've been to one game there, and he has exactly right. That thing is entirely concrete. And everything echoes like off of they play there in September, and it's hot as blazes. So at least Fayetteville will be a little bit better.
And they've got the turf too. I'll say this: you got to sell on them. There's not a Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, Brett Bielema. None of them. I like Sam Pittman as a person, and I will flex for just a second. I said when I first created my Twitter account that, which was a pretty wild time to say it, but I said that Sam Pittman would outlast Jimbo Fisher. It sounded just very haterish at the time, but maybe I just know somebody in Arkansas that said, we're going to give this guy so much time that it makes us seem crazy, because I love Sam Pittman, but I don't understand how he's still there. Obviously, start looking at
Chad Morris went 0-16 in the 2 years in the SEC, and Sam Pittman didn't. That's why he's still there. But yes.
No, fair point. I mean, it could just be that I don't know. I think he tells a great joke. I like Sam Pittman. I think he's a hell of a guy, but a hell of a guy doesn't mean that you win football games. I'm disappointed that he, as an offensive lineman, he has not been, or an O-line coach, has not been able to find an offensive line at Arkansas. I loved watching Darren McFadden, Cedric Cobb, even with Matt Jones before then, Arkansas having power ground attacks, and those were really fun teams. Now, I will say I enjoy Arkansas being down, because they're going to be on our schedule every single year. So, yeah, sell all day on Arkansas. It's hard to know what direction they go, what their administration and their buy-in support, all those things are even like right now. It's been really, really dark times for those guys.
Yeah. Fan bases, when it comes to X and Twitter especially, I mean, it doesn't get more insane than Arkansas fans. Tennessee fans are just like – Tennessee fans can just be like hot garbage and sometimes can be terrible people. Arkansas, those people are legit crazy.
Dude, I mean, I have Arkansas family. I have Arkansas grad family. I feel a special corner of my heart is reserved for the Arkansas Razorbacks. I root for them when they're not playing A&M. I hate them when we're playing them. But I've been going to that game in Jerry World for the last 5-6 years. I love going there. It's an excuse to go to Dallas. The divided stadium is awesome. I don't know if this is just the nature of, neutral sites and having both fan bases in the same place. I have seen punches thrown. I have seen blood drawn. I have seen people kicked out. I've seen everything at these games. These Arkansas fans are insane, and I kind of love it. It's really fun.
They're fun. What you just described is a Saturday morning at any Arkansas Walmart. Like, it's just like it has nothing to do with like being in a football game or anything.
That's just Arkansas.
Yeah, those people are rolling up. It's on site. They're throwing fists.
What do you mean? Why am I mad? I do this every day.
This is how I live my life.
Yeah,
it's my fourth time today.
Yeah, but to your point, there is that level of crazy that's like, it's crazy. It's so crazy that you got to respect it. You just got to be like, dude, like y'all own it, and they do own it. So
they do. There's no shame there, none whatsoever. At least they do have baseball. I know basketball just ended for them. Drew, keep your head up. Better times are coming. I promise. I'm not here to troll. John, you're cooked this weekend, brother, man. Get ready to sing the Eyes of Texas. For you YouTubers that may not know, John and I have agreed to a little wager. If Texas wins the series versus Georgia on the baseball diamond this weekend, John will be singing the Eyes of Texas. Luckily for me, John said that if Georgia wins, I don't have to do anything. So it's high risk, or low risk, high reward for myself. Yeah, he's a model guy. He's a really good guy.
I'm just letting him. It's his show. It's his channel. I'm just letting him say whatever he wants. But he's gonna be barking. He's gonna be barking.
Maybe he'll be barking. He was woofing last time. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean,
it was a pretty low rent bark for sure.
Yeah, exactly. For those who aren't aware, this is round 2 of the big game bet. Ghost and I bet on Georgia versus Texas football in the regular season last year. I was going to sing the Eyes of Texas if Texas beat Georgia, and he was going to call the dogs and bark, and we know what happened. I mean, he ended up barking. It's on the channel. You can go find it. Maybe I'll tweet a clip at John Tweet Sports of Ghost barking, because that's what happened last time. So that's what happened last time.
Evan, I love you. John being here twice in a week means that I also get to have your wonderful presence twice in a week on this channel. So thanks for being here, Evan. No blocking, because Texas is winning the series. We might sweep the series. All right, get ready to learn the name Ruger Riojas and a lot of Max Wiener. All right, for you, Drew knows.
I know about Max Wiener.
Gentlemen, thank y'all for being here. Most importantly, thank you guys in the comments. Y'all make it what it is. Give us a reason to keep doing it. Like this video if you haven't. Please go show these gentlemen some love. I know most of y'all subscribed already, and I really appreciate all of that. But yeah, Chris, Evan, Maggie, I mean, we got Twitter's elite in here, and they've been in here all night. So it means a lot. Drew, thank you. John, thank you. We'll have another episode where we will buy, sell, and maybe even add another option to the other 8 teams in the conference. Still got Texas, still got Georgia, still got Oklahoma. Guys, got some real heavy hitters. So it'll be a lot of fun.